What's going on, 59Gaming crew? It's your boy Lethal One Up, and we're also with the one, the only, the special Hazing. Hazing, what's going on, my dude?
Not a lot, mate. Not a lot. I've just been getting quite excited about reading about this emulation news that's happening.
I know there's been so much, like, I feel like just constantly like breaking news, like just things popping up all over the place with like between the Xbox Series X and the S and the PlayStation 5. Like there's just tons of things coming up, and this was probably one of the last things I expected so soon to start popping up already. And basically, it's emulation of what's this story. But I mean, there's probably other. I'm thinking other like emulating, like services and programs and what running up besides PS2. But I feel like the one that we found and the one that I see popping up a lot is about emulating PS2 games on the Xbox Series S and X. Give me your thoughts and everything.
Well, I think the reason you're seeing that popping up so much is it's more the meme. You know what I mean? Like, oh look, PS2 games are running on an Xbox, and you can't run PS2 games on a PS5. So I think that's why you're seeing the PS2 being the thing that's highlighted. But what I would say first of all about this news is there's been quite a lot of little tidbits here and there where the PlayStation's get like a 2% performance gain on the Xbox, blah blah blah. I'd say this is the first big thing that actually will make some people sit up and take notice. Now, obviously, it's not something that Microsoft themselves are officially putting out, but there's a massive emulation scene, and this emulation scene wants a box that sits underneath their TV, not a PC, because obviously you can do all this no problem at all on your PC, but they want a decent box that sits under their TV that will allow them to emulate whatever they want. And lately there's been a few options people have been running out and buying, like the Super Nintendo Mini, the PlayStation Micro or whatever it's called, and you run a few bits and bobs on it and it'll emulate lots of different consoles. But obviously, due to hardware limitations, they'll only go so far, and there's only so many things that you can actually run. But now they have this console that's got good guts in it. It's got a good powerful CPU and stuff like that to back it up, and you can run quite a lot of decent stuff on it. You can actually go right up to the GameCube on it and run it pretty well.
That's wild. Every time I always hear about like emulation and being on, like, you know, if it starts, you know, creeping up on like some of the current gen consoles and like past gen consoles, it's a wild topic, because I think it's always everybody's fan, right? To be able to play God of War right here on like Xbox Series S, and even just like thinking about GameCube and playing Nintendo games on your consoles. And now I feel like there's one thing that I do know, and like there's definitely a history of like when these emulations kind of pop up. I feel like especially with like anything involving Nintendo, that stuff usually gets like revoked or like taken down like usually as soon as possible. What are your thoughts, since you know a bit more on emulation? Do you think it's possible like this stuff will get taken down as soon as it starts blowing up a little bit more on the, you know, for the Xbox Series S and X?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult to tackle. Yeah. Mainly, first of all, like you touched on, Nintendo are very anti-emulation.
Yeah.
Emulators themselves aren't illegal. There's nothing to stop anyone emulating. It's basically how they get their ROMs. That's where...
Right, that's true.
That's where Nintendo comes into it, and they get pretty upset. And basically, you have people that will say, "Oh, there's legal ways to get ROMs." But if we're being completely transparent and honest, I'd say probably 80% of people are going to jump on the internet, type in blah 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 ROM, and find somewhere to download it. That's what's going to happen, right? Let's just cut through the BS here. That's what people do. Nintendo don't like that, because obviously Nintendo want to repurpose their titles. They want to bring them back out on digital platforms, etc.
We just got remakes, man. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and this is cutting into that bottom line. So the issue I foresee here is Microsoft haven't like handed anyone the tools to do this. I'll just quickly run over what you need to do. Basically, you buy access to dev kit access. Okay, Microsoft have enabled everyone, whether it's the Series S or the Series X. That article does focus on the S, but you can do this on the X as well. And obviously with the X, you can probably do it better because it's got more powerful hardware. So basically, you pay $19 or £19 and you buy developer mode. And once you're in developer mode, you can then install RetroArch onto the console. And anyone who's into emulation will know RetroArch is a one-size-fits-all emulator. Basically, you download the BIOSes that you want for whatever specific console, whether it be arcade cabinets, whether it be Super Nintendos, PlayStations, I mean, all the way through. Once you've got it installed, you install your ROMs and bang, you're good to go. That's literally how easy they've made it. The problem I see is, I think maybe, like just maybe, Nintendo might kick up a stink, because obviously Nintendo
Right.
and Microsoft have developed this working relationship kind of thing, where you've seen Xbox characters appearing in Smash, for example. Obviously you've got Banjo-Kazooie appearing in Smash. There's some other things that's happened there. They got Ori and the Will-O-the-Wisp that appeared on the Switch. So there's obviously a half decent working relationship between Nintendo and Microsoft, and I think if Microsoft don't do anything at all, that could maybe get Nintendo's back up, which again, I don't know if it's worth them souring that relationship. So I don't know. I could see Nintendo kicking up a bit of a stink, but ultimately I don't know what they can do, because Microsoft promised everyone you can make your Xbox a dev kit, and if they roll that back, then it's going to cause a stink, probably along the lines of when Sony took Linux away from the PS3. I remember that was a big deal to quite a lot of people, and I think doing something like that here could maybe cause a similar sort of a stink. So I don't know how they're going to handle it, to be honest.
No, yeah, those are great points. I feel like it definitely sparks up the question though, like if, say Microsoft does want to kind of keep something like this rolling, and depending on the time that Nintendo wants to come and attack possibly, or let it go, or what I mean, but everything that we just said, like, do you think with this going bigger and bigger and hitting that demographic, could we see people saying, okay, you know what, man, I was team PlayStation, but now I might be going to team Xbox Series X, or Xbox Series S. As someone myself who is 100%, I'm a PlayStation guy, especially for this generation. When I see news like this, and I see the possibility of getting an Xbox and the potential of doing some emulation on it, it's definitely it's tempting. It's definitely something to look into, because this kind of this makes your purchase a lot more bigger. It makes your purchase more worth it. And so now it's really going to make people start to think, if I haven't gotten my new next gen console yet, because there's a lot of people right now who just still don't have it, because right now pre-orders are still selling like crazy. They're going in seconds. It's almost impossible. But I mean, eventually people and everybody in general, they're going to be able to get their hands on one. So, as time passes by and we start seeing news like this that's news like that starts popping off kind of, do we think that this is something that can tip over the possible sales that were going to go to PlayStation and maybe tip it over to Xbox? What do you think?
Things like this do have an effect. I mean, as someone who's basically been part of every console generation since the NES, although I got the NES as a little boy, right? my mum got it for my Christmas, but I've had them all the way through. But from when emulation started to become a thing, it definitely does have an impact. Not as much as an impact as piracy, right? Again, right. I'm not condoning any of this, right. But you generally find that if a console gets hacked open and you can start getting pirated games, people will buy that console. It happened to the PSP, it happened to
right.
It happens to everything, do you know what I mean? But the same thing happens with emulation as well. Now, as someone who does enjoy to emulate things, now obviously I've stated this already, my PC does everything, but having it sitting under your TV, being able to use an Xbox pad, I would now, even though I have a PlayStation 5, I would now get an Xbox S. I wouldn't necessarily jump to an X, but as a secondary console that'll give me access on my TV to Game Pass, which I can already do through my phone and my PC, right? But at the same time, knowing that I've got this console that I can get Game Pass, and I've also basically got access to about 30 years worth of gaming history that I want to dive into whenever I want. And the thing is as well, a lot of these things will run at better specifications than they ran on the native console. Like, there'll be some upscaling involved, right? You know what I mean? You can play them at 2-3 times resolution and stuff like that. So games will potentially look better running on emulation than they will on a native console. So I could definitely 100% see people buying an Xbox Series S or Series X as a second console. And for some people who are sitting on the fence, it could potentially be something that would maybe tip them one way over the other. I don't necessarily think it's enough to drive the hardcore PlayStation fan away from PlayStation, but it's definitely enough to make the hardcore PlayStation fan at least consider having an Xbox sitting under their TV to play older games.
You know what's funny, Hazik, you actually brought up a very good point, and it's something that I even myself sort of just like stepping into that territory a little bit, but it's where we're kind of going with this cloud service gaming, right? You mentioned it about the Game Pass, and I played a little bit from NVIDIA's GeForce, and their offerings from like PC to mobile and everything like that. But, I feel like you brought a good point to say that, we are getting to that point now where, we have access to some of these games, on our mobile now. And eventually, I think that's something that's going to become more mainstream later on. And, shout out to Microsoft for doing Game Pass and doing the xCloud game service. I think that's a great idea. So it's something that I just thought about, and I was just thinking, and, I feel like eventually, I think PlayStation might have something. In fact, there was an article that was put out that PlayStation possibly has something in the works to some degree as how Xbox is doing it, Microsoft is going about it. And being able to play some of these backwards compatible games is something that might be possible as like a native thing just from your PlayStation flat out and your Xbox flat out. Do you think, I think eventually if they go in that direction, because I feel like being able to game on your phone and it's not that it's like the best way of doing it, but it's giving you the possibility of being able to play console kind of games on your on your phone or something like that. Do you think that if these services start going that direction of wanting to support, like for example, PlayStation Now and whatever Xbox wants to offer from their Xbox category, Xbox catalog, and just some of those old games to play back, because a lot of times when you're doing emulation, you're wanting to play some of these older generation games and replay them again. So if we start getting a service like that from PlayStation and Xbox themselves, and they start pushing for that direction, I guess, do you think emulation would still be I don't know, still be a thing, or still, I don't know, are people going to want to go for, the more traditional, just go for, go through PlayStation, go through Xbox because it's supported and, it'll constantly get supported that way? Or, what do you think? What's your take on that?
Well, I've actually got two really quick takes on that.
Go for it.
One, people would still download ROMs.
Yeah.
The reason being, there's two reasons actually. One, a lot of these games that you can get ROMs for have essentially been sunsetted through licensing reasons or stuff like that, and you just won't get them. You won't.
Right.
Simply, they just won't happen because the company that made the game doesn't have the license anymore, and it's essentially gone to history. Do you know what I mean? So the only way you can play a lot of these games is through emulation. So even if they did try and bring out a Netflix style, here's an all-you-can-eat buffet of arcade games from Capcom, and you know what I mean, if they tried to do all that kind of stuff, you wouldn't actually get access to everything. So for that reason, people would do it. And secondly, again, let's be brutally honest, you've got Netflix just now, you've got Spotify just now that charge you a very small fee to get all you can eat music, all you can eat video. People still go and pirate video, and people still go and pirate music. So it's never going to die. As long as people can get something for free, there's going to always be a proportion of people that want to access it for free, no matter how small you make that. Look at Crunchyroll, look at Funimation. People still go to pirate sites where you can watch anime for free, even though they could just literally pay $5.99 a month. You know what I mean? And get all this stuff. So you're always going to have that demographic of people that want access to it for free, because that's just the way that society is, let's be honest. And I don't think that it would replace it. But just really quickly, I don't want to go off the topic too much, but what you were saying there about streaming to phones, etc., and being able to play console games natively, I advise you to go and have a look at PlayStation Now, because PlayStation Now is actually, people don't even look at it anymore, but it's actually improved a hell of a lot.
I was for sure.
Through the catalog. I was looking through the catalog like 2 days ago, and even just the stuff that you can download to your PlayStation 4 and your PlayStation 5, not even streaming, the stuff you can download, it's getting up there with Game Pass. I'm not saying it's quite there, but it's getting there. All they need to do
they're doing
is
a good job,
but they're doing it quietly as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I see all the time, some of the games that are coming out for Game Pass for PlayStation Now are some of the games that just came out kind of recently. It's been a while, but I remember back when I think it was Just Cause 4 had just come out. I think, was it Tomb Raider maybe? But PlayStation Now was kind of getting it in there almost a month later, maybe 2 months later. That's not 100%, but I mean, I feel like they're definitely working on their way of pushing to get games on there like that, right away, sort of. Yeah.
Stuff like Formula 1 2020 is in it just now, and that's not an old game. You know what I mean? I looked, and that was only just been discounted on Amazon for Black Friday, and I think it was one of the first times it had been discounted. So it's not like it's a massively old game or anything like that. So it's definitely getting up there. I mean, the only thing I think that really offers a big advantage with Game Pass is they now give you EA access for free as well. So Microsoft are really throwing into this subscription service. So like I say, if you decided that I'm going to pick up an Xbox, I want to emulate my retro games, there's probably going to come a party that goes, do you know what, maybe I should just pay £10 a month, and maybe I should just get this Game Pass Ultimate. So I mean, it's going to play into Microsoft's business strategy.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that, and that's part of the reason why I was saying, usually if you're gonna go through Xbox or PlayStation, if they were to go deeper into those routes, I mean, they're gonna have probably great support for it. You know, there's going to be tons of constant support for making sure that stuff works right away and no bugs and whatnot, or at least to minimize as much as they can. But I agree. I think it's just better to always go that route anyways. And I feel like though we are getting into that point. I feel like, I think the further they deep dive into, these PlayStation Nows and Game Passes, and we start getting into some of these xCloud services and these possible just being able to game from anywhere. I definitely see not that this would go away completely, but I can see it to take away maybe some of the use of this. But I mean, 100% I agree with you. People are still going to do this. There's still people that want to do the emulation and stuff like that. It's always going to be there, especially for the same reasons that you mentioned before. But I think
one of the cool things as well is with this emulation, people have went into the core of the Xbox and went, look, we can develop this, we can make RetroArch run on the Xbox. Now that's within the first 7 days of that becoming available to the public. What are they going to develop for open source Xbox next? If they've got RetroArch working on it, it's not going to be long before they have Dolphin working on it. It's got a powerful CPU and GPU, so are they going to actually go down the route of trying to get the PS3 emulation working on it? I think there might be more to come.
That's interesting. to think about that.
Yeah, I mean the
thing is big, yeah.
The graphics card and the CPU that are running in an Xbox just now are more powerful than quite a lot of people have got on their PCs. So all they need to do is find out how to optimize that, and they could get things like the PS3 emulator running. Do you know what I mean? It's definitely something that they could do.
For $500, man, that's like 3 generations. Not even 3 generations. That's how many generations of gaming all on one console. That's the crazy thing about it. And that's the thing that I will say, but the emulation, with the power of emulation and doing everything that they can do, the RetroArch and everything, that's pretty big. That's huge.
Definitely. I mean, RPCS3, that's the name of the stable PlayStation 3 emulator that's out there. I honestly don't think it would take much for them to code it for it. So again, you heard it here first. Don't be shocked if within 6 months you see videos popping up where people are playing PlayStation 3 games on an Xbox.
Yeah, man. Let me see any other extra things to mention on this. This is something. This is definitely something, and I'm curious to see, what's going to happen post now. Like, what are we going to see for Xbox? Because I know, the spot that Xbox is in, it's doing good, but I think they want it to do better. So I wonder how much of this can possibly tip that. That'll be interesting for me to see.
The problem Microsoft have got with this is they can't leverage this. Do you know what I mean? They can't. This isn't something that they can personally leverage, but people that are running articles like you're seeing on screen just now, YouTubers that are putting up videos saying, oh, this works, oh, that works, oh, this works, they're going to drive people to go out and buy the console. And like I said before, there is a massive dedicated fan base to emulation, and as this thing gets unlocked and as it does more and more, you will see people rushing out to buy it. And these people will probably never have any intention of getting an Xbox game. It's just buy the console, have it sitting underneath their machine, their TV, sorry, and they're just going to emulate to their heart's content. And to be honest, I'm not going to lie and say I'm not one of those people, because I think that is ultimately what I'm going to do. I'm going to get myself one of these for emulation, but I'll probably also in the background pick up well, I've got Microsoft Game Pass anyway. I use it on my phone, so why not? Do you know what I mean? Just I'll be able to get it on the go. But no, I'm looking forward to see what it can bring. My only dilemma just now is the X or the S.
X or the S. I don't know, man. That S price for emulation, that's a steal.
That's what's swinging me. The thing is, but if I know what I'm like when Forza Horizon 5 comes out, for example. I know I want to play that, and I want to play that in 4K. So I'll be like, maybe I should just get the X, But no, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely something that I don't see happening with PlayStation anyway, because obviously the one downside to this is if people can do this, then if they're getting access to bits of the Xbox to be able to do this, how long is it going to be before someone uses that as an exploit to allow them to pirate software? And that's why PlayStation will not do this. They won't open it up. You'll not get this on PlayStation unless you jailbreak the PlayStation further down the line or whatever, if that's something that becomes a thing. Because obviously Linux opened up security issues and it made it so that people could potentially run pirated software on their PlayStation 3. And as soon as that became a thing, Sony shut that down. Do you know what I mean? That was that. We're taking Linux out. You're not going to have that anymore. I could see potentially the same type of thing happening with the Xbox, because if you're basically letting people by your own volition, just letting them have a backdoor into your system, you know what people are like. People will use that to try and code ways to run actual Xbox software for free. And if that happens, then kiss bye-bye to emulation, because Microsoft will shut that down.
I was gonna say, and if I'm not mistaken, I remember like there was an emulation done for like Xbox One X or Xbox One at the time. I think I heard a similar story, but I just never heard any more after that. I feel like, you know, did he ever get cut down? Like, you know, did he get taken out, revoked? I don't know.
I'll be honest, I don't know about the Xbox. I mean, on the original Xbox, you had Xbox Media Center that was like the go-to. Everybody would run pirated software on it. They would run their emulation on it. They would run Kodi. Remember Kodi?
I remember that.
That was like the go-to where people would go to use their Xboxes for Kodi. It was one of the best things to use. And then obviously the Xbox 360 came out, and people were hacking that at the start. But then there became this whole thing. I think they called it J-tagging. I think that's what it's called, where you J-tag your Xbox in the later time, and you can basically turn that thing into an emulation powerhouse. I'm not sure about the Xbox One. I'd need to go away and do some research into it. I must admit, I'm not that well versed on emulation for that. But so far, like I say, every other Xbox console will put air quotes on it. I don't know if the Xbox One has been done, but it seems to be that it's got a history of becoming an emulation powerhouse for people. It's just never happened that quickly.
All right, and there you hear it, folks. I have nothing else to add to this because I think we had a lot of good points. What about you, Hazing? Any last thing to add on to this?
No, just I'm surprised. Honestly, I'm surprised that it's happened so quickly, and
That's what I feel like, super quick, man.
Yeah, and it's more the fact that they haven't had to work for it. Normally, people have to. You see it. You see things on Twitter. Oh, we've broke into the code for this. It won't be long. Oh, we'll have something for this soon. But no, this is Microsoft that have essentially supplied the tools to people. And I mean, this actually has been going on for about 2 weeks now. I just got wind of it, but it was almost pretty much as soon as the Xbox became public, people were like, "Bang, we can do this," and that was it, straight away.
There you go.
Very unusual. Very unusual.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I think that's all we got for today. You know, there's a couple of topics that we might have to dive into for a separate video. Now that we're talking about PlayStation Now, they got me some ideas. So you guys are probably gonna get a PlayStation Now video now, because there's something that I think I want to talk about that one for another video. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a like, and don't forget to go ahead and subscribe. We appreciate you over here from 59Gaming, and we're gonna go ahead and send it off from here. I'm Lethal One Up. That's Hazink, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.